I'm very excited to do this walkthrough because not only am I going to talk about Mr. Daniel Martin Díaz, who sent me this. This is one of his latest creations, the Golden Age Tarot, first printing. This is he restored this with his vision of how he thought that Pamela Colman-Smith artwork should look. And I concur. And I will explain as we go through this walkthrough of this gorgeous deck. Also, while comparing it to the standard. And talk about why the colors have changed so much over the years, why they're like very poppy and bold in this one, and then how he sees it. So let's dig in. So here we have the Golden Age Tarot 1909 edition, Pamela Colman-Smith, restored by Daniel Martin Díaz. And then this, again, is the just the plastic version, and it's called the Rider Tarot deck. Yes, keep that in mind. So, but within it, we have a invitation to read Pamela Colman-Smith's The Untold Story by Stuart R. Kaplan and Mary K. Greer, Elizabeth Foley O'Connor, and Melinda Boyd Parsons. So that's quite a group of people to put this together. And I've heard nothing but excellent things, but I have not read it yet. So that is next for me to do. There's some artwork. Yes, so I think it's interesting, and I'm going to talk a lot about Pamela Colman-Smith within this walkthrough. So, yeah. This is, again, Daniel Martin Díaz. Now, this is what he has written here. The Golden Age Tarot 1909 edition is a careful reproduction of the iconic tarot, illustrated by Pamela Colman-Smith under the direction of Arthur Edward Waite. Originally printed in London in 1909, this deck helped shape the visual language of tarot for over a century. So he says, my goal in this edition is to honor the integrity of Smith's line work, colors, and symbolism while presenting it in format true to its era. Each card has been reproduced from high-quality sources, preserving the texture, tone, and charm of the original printing. Daniel Martin Díaz. Yes, I love that. All right, you know what? I'm going to put these in order. We'll be right back. All right, first of all, let's look at Pamela Colman-Smith, nicknamed Pixie. So, some people believe that she was mixed white and or English and Jamaican, which I have no opinion on that, but I do know that there's no known proof today whether she was actually mixed or not. Do I think that it's something that could have been hidden on purpose, you know, as far as like the people that were associated with her family may not have wanted that knowledge known in that day and age. But she definitely embraced that culture, you know, of Jamaica. This was one of the stories that she wrote, and it was a very successful book. And I believe it was about a spider that could take on that was also human. So, and then of course she also she wrote the Chim Chim, the Bluebeard, the Golden Vanity, and the Book of Hours. So, I mean, very talented, very successful before the tarot. You know what I mean? Already. So, and I think that was part of the reason that Arthur Waite took a shining to her, even though I know that that's not the only reason, because she was also a member of the Golden Dawn. And the way that it was explained, let me see if I can't find an actual quote from his autobiography or see where he talks about her. Here's what I found. The biography of Pamela Colman-Smith and the creation of the Waite-Smith Tarot. And here it does say, as quoted from Arthur Waite himself, his selection of Smith for this work: I have embraced an opportunity which has been somewhat of the unexpected kind, and have interested in a very skillful and original artist in the proposal to design a set. Miss Pamela Colman Smith, in addition to her obvious gifts, has some knowledge of tarot values. She has lent a sympathetic ear to my proposal to rectify the symbolism by reference to channels of knowledge which are not in the open day. But yet, he claims to have given her strict directions on the tarot. Let me see if I can't find that. So this is a letter that's very hard to read, but this is to Mr. Steglitz from Pamela, and she's asking for money for her work on the moon, the card. And it says, I wonder where you are. I want some money for Christmas. I wonder if you got Miss Bush's money for the moon. Oh, okay. Can you send it to me? I have 8 or 9 new things I'm sending over next week. You will like them, I think. Perhaps a few people may care for 1 or 2. They are careful and nice color and larger than any except the wave one. I hope you're doing well and the little galleries are still there. I have just finished a big job for very little cash. A set of designs for a pack of tarot cards, 80 designs. I shall send some over of the original drawings, as some people may like them. I will send you a pack printed in color, possibly very badly, as soon as they are ready by December. With good wishes to you. Now, she finished her work in a very short amount of time, which is, it's just amazing. Okay. He still tended to downplay her contributions to the project. And we are talking again of Arthur Waite. He wrote in his autobiography, which was entitled Shadows of Life and Thought, he wrote, now in those days, there was a most imaginative and abnormally psychic artist named Pamela Colman-Smith, who had drifted into the Golden Dawn and found its ceremonies as transformed by myself, he says, without pretending or indeed attempting to understand their subsurface consequence. It's almost like he's saying she wasn't really interested in the Golden Dawn things. It seemed to some of us in the circle that there was a Draught's woman among us who, under proper guidance, could produce a tarot with an appeal to the world of art and a suggestion of significance behind the symbols, which would put on them another construction than had ever been dreamed by those who, through many generations, had produced and used them for mere divinatory purposes. Okay, so yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with that. So I don't believe for 1 minute that she didn't have a lot of say, if you know what I mean. And I think Arthur Waite saw the brilliance, but he wanted to get ahead of it. You know what I mean? That's just my speculation, but I don't think I'm alone in that. I also wanted to look at her art. So her art is very, I don't know. I think keep this in mind as we're going through the walkthrough. I want you to see, I can understand what Daniel Martin Díaz was actually going for and trying to stay true to her style, I think. You know, I don't think she was so bold, and she did start with pen and pencil and ink, and then the colors did come later. Well, you can see it. This was 1878 to 1951, and this one's called Tate. Don't know if she was done with it. There's her signature, her epic signature. But the focus is on the face, you know. What I see is somebody that doesn't use like these bold clashing of colors. So that is something I don't think she really, you know, because I mean, we can see this is the original magician, right? And then we have the moon. I feel like these are more representing the colors, but we will see in Mr. Diaz's cards that he's using a more subdued, a more muted blending where nothing is really clashing against anything else. So, all right, let's dig into this. Let me start by saying thank you, Daniel, for sending me this. I love your vision. All right, so here's the Fool. When Pamela Colman-Smith attended the Pratt Institute of Art, I think she was like 15, she discovered something extraordinary about herself. She had something called synesthesia, which is a crossing of the senses that allowed her to sense or to see sound and hear color. So for her, music wasn't just a melody, it painted visions in the air. I believe I found a rendition. If I actually find it again, I will put it in here, of while she was listening to Bach, the great composer, artist, musical meister. She created a painting. She did created a vision, or she painted the vision. So she could listen to a concert and watch colors ripple and twist in her mind and then translate those inner visions straight onto paper. Modern psychology calls it a neurological blending of sensory input, but for Pamela, it was also being psychic. She painted from trance, from dream, from memory, and that gave her work a mystical depth that felt alive. Pamela, or Pixie, as her friends called her, believed that art should be experienced intuitively. She once said that she painted the invisible things. That's why I find Daniel Martin Díaz's Golden Age Waite-Smith tarot so intriguing. The only real difference between this and the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith is color. So Diaz muted the tones, softened the contrast, and somehow that draws out the psychic quiet of the art, in my opinion. It's less about the boldness of color and more about the stillness beneath it, the part where intuition speaks. I definitely believe that. Color is important, don't get me wrong. But this kind of this hurts my eyes sometimes, I'm not going to lie. Doing a deep dive and understanding the significance in color does help, but to look at it is really different than feeling it, right? Back to Pamela. So Pamela was born in London on February 16th, 1878. Her father, Charles Edward Smith, was an American merchant from Brooklyn, and her mother, Corinne Colman-Smith, came from a New England family. Now, the family spent several years in Jamaica, where her father worked for the West India Improvement Company. And I believe those early years left a very vivid mark on her imagination. I think that she expressed that in the way that she dressed, in the way that she looked, in the way, and I can't say it from the way she spoke, but she was a storyteller. So she also, again, she later wrote and illustrated the Anansi stories, which I showed you that, and the Chim Chim folk stories of Jamaica, which are beautiful retellings of the trickster spider, the shapeshifter who uses wit to survive. Interesting, right? The rhythm and humor of those tales stayed with her forever. And those that, knew Pamela talked very highly of her storytelling. And she ran in circles of, elite people. So before she ever touched tarot, Pamela was already famous. She created little hand-painted dolls, which is something I just recently learned, and staged miniature plays. She designed the costumes and the sets by hand. The audience adored them. She ran in elite artistic circles, friends with W.B. Yeats, Bram Stoker, and members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And she was known for her storytelling, her imagination, and her spiritual presence. And then came Arthur Waite. Now, I think it's very interesting, again, in his autobiography, where he wrote about this special woman who was extremely psychic, saying he chose her to illustrate his tarot, but that he had to give her strict instructions because she supposedly didn't quite understand the esoteric material of the Golden Dawn. To me, that comment, it says a lot. Not about her, but about Arthur Waite. It reads almost like a man trying to keep his grip on the narrative. I honestly believe that he saw her brilliance eclipsing his own. He knew that she was the one bringing the magic to life, and maybe that threatened him. And, man, we see that all the time. Yeah, we see that all the time. In our own circles, people want to diminish you, so they will do or say something that just kind of is like a dig here and there. So he claimed that he dictated everything, especially the High Priestess and a few of the other cards. But personally, I think that's revisionism. You can feel her energy in every line and in the color. Even here, I still see it, obviously, but I think Daniel does a major justice to her. The theatrical composition, we do see a lot of stage cards. The emotional resonance, the quiet humanity that's not in his writings at all. I think Waite's words were less about direction. Not really. I'm talking about his autobiography. So his words were less about the direction and more about damage control, I think, because you can see that she was brilliant. I mean, think about it. She was the first woman to fully illustrate the minor arcana, or the first person, period, to fully illustrate the minor arcana. I think he might have been the theorist, maybe, or probably certainly, but she was the visionary. I think she's the one that truly brought it to life. I think that she put her own beliefs in here. Pretty sure she was Catholic. I'm not positive on that one. So the Waite-Smith Tarot, which was first published in 1909, was revolutionary. Her 78 illustrations became archetypal portals. Each card is a story, a dream, a mythic threshold. I think Waite provided the framework, but I think Pamela is the one that gave it its soul, its identity. What's truly remarkable is that the minor arcana the everyday suit cards, these are largely her creation. And at least that's admitted, you know, because before her, pip cards were just rows of cups or swords. She transformed them into narratives, giving the tarot its human heartbeat. That's why scholars today call it the Waite-Smith deck. Finally acknowledging her half of the design team. She wasn't just a hired hand. She was the co-creator. Over the decades, publishers have recolored, redrawn, and reformatted her art. Some editions replaced her handwritten tiles with standard fonts. Others brightened the palette, obviously. Even through all that, her touch still remains. The grace of movement, the symbolic tension, the poetic restraint that only she could see. Pamela's later years were pretty difficult. I think from that letter we see that, you know, it's like this, I don't know, I feel like it was intentional to push the narrative a certain way. And I think it did what it was intended to do concerning her, and I think she was too soft-spoken about it, you know, and I think because of that time, unfortunately, it probably felt hard to speak up for herself, which really surprises me because the way that it's told that she was very confident, she was very sure of herself. I mean, quite an eccentric, you know. And then all of a sudden she joins the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and Arthur Waite just kind of like consumes her, it feels like. Commercial publishers overlooked her. So she self-published. She collaborated with friends, and she lived modestly. When she died, her art had slipped into obscurity. So I do find, that's why I really want to read The Untold Story. I think it is going to reintroduce me to the full spectrum of her life as a painter, a folklorist, a stage designer, a musician, and a mystic. I definitely see that. And that's another reason why I'm so drawn to the symbolism. It is why I'm drawn to her art. And it's not because of the color as much as, like I said, much as it was like diving into the symbolism really spoke to me and understanding where she was going with it. And I mean, I'm just, wow. Yeah, it makes the keywords, it makes it all, I'm able to retain it now that I've done deep dive into the symbolism. And that is her, no matter what Arthur Waite has claimed, in my opinion. So I think she created, in the midst of the Golden Dawn ritual, channeling Hermetic symbolism, kind of an archetypal language, or should I say it is an archetypal language. Her art wasn't just painted, it was invoked, especially now knowing that she also had synesthesia. I mean, obviously she was psychic, so I mean, we can understand that she could hear music, but I think it was so much more than that, you know. Obviously the words that she was told to guide her, she had these visions, you know what I mean? I mean, look at, obviously, these are stage cards. And speaking of Hermetic symbolism, I do want to share something fascinating when we get to the Two of Swords. So don't let me forget. Don't let me forget. So Pamela Colman-Smith changed the language of tarot forever. And I think Daniel Martin Díaz honors her by restoring her name, her vision, and her quiet power. I mean, the differences are very subtle, but it's enough. I've paired this with other things, and it's more appealing the way that this artwork, it blends, than it just, the contrast that we see in the originals. Or maybe, I don't think these are the originals. I think these were, add-ons kind of. So when I look at this Golden Age edition, I feel the colors whisper instead of shout. And again, that's allowing her spirit to come through. I think she was a woman ahead of her time, psychic, theatrical, and bold enough to paint the unseen. And art, after all, is another form of magic. And through Pamela's hands, the invisible finally found color. All right. So, also, which is really, it's not a myth, I don't think. I think that there is questions about her preference in her mates, her relationships. And she was very fond of women. And the way that it was written off was that she just had very close female companions. But she lived with her quote-unquote, I don't know if she was housekeeper or what, but she lived with a woman, and I think that's how it was explained. But she was very fond of women, and she kind of ran in those type of circles, flamboyant, theatrical. Again, very sure of herself. She did meet a famous actress by the name of Ellen Terry, and I believe that she was the inspiration for one of the tarot cards. And I don't remember which one it was. I guess I'd have to look that up. I think it's in Wikipedia. I think it's the Queen of Wands or the World card. And there was another lady that she was very fond of that was kind of the inspiration. And it's one or the other. I might be getting them mixed up. So she was queer in her time, and I think they covered that up. So, I mean, there's no proof of her race being mixed, but yet I think that could have been a cover-up. So I think there's a lot of things that, myself, I didn't really know until I started digging into tarot and understanding the artist, It's one thing to read, the pictorial key and just these definitions. They just don't do it. They don't do it for me. It was digging into the symbolism that really made the meanings stick. I was able to retain them more. Yeah. All right, now we are getting to the Two of Swords. This was one of the things that Daniel sent me also. And this is Judgment, and the rendition is called Judgment, the piece of artwork. Now, I don't know if this is from a particular tarot deck, oracle deck, but the picture is called Judgment. So, but I can see the similarities here, right? So I don't know if, I feel Lady Justice here too, but all the way even down to her feet and the way here the gown lays, except for, here there's water behind her and here there's fire. But she's blindfolded. So I almost feel like it's indicative of each other. So She does look like Lady Justice, but again, she mirrors the Two of Swords. So in both cards, I don't think that this blindfold is about ignorance. I think it's about inner sight. You know, definitely blocking out the noise of what's around you, because especially with judgment, you need to have discernment, right? And here we're at a crossroads. What are you looking for? You're looking for a decision. You need to make a decision. So both of them, they're blocking out the noise and going within and blocking out everything else, because, you know, here we're seeing a meeting point between two truths. You know, I know we've got this almost like blocking something, maybe like she's blocking her heart, but I feel like she's concentrating, because here she's not blocking the heart. So she's concentrating, but as to do that, she's blocking out the noise. So the crossed swords mark that pivotal moment of choice, the meeting point between these two truths, and that's where the judgment lies. You know, this instantly reminded me of the Hermetic principle of polarity, that opposites are not truly separate, but degrees of the same essence. So I think maybe Diaz is suggesting that the true judgment isn't about external verdicts, it's about reconciliation, the union of duality, where we stop seeing opposites and start recognizing balance. And knowing that Diaz also studies Hermetic philosophy, I don't think this was an accident. He seems to be honoring Pamela's language also of intuition and duality, seeing judgment as an inner awakening rather than an outer decree. So I just wanted to share that with you, because when I first saw this, I was struck. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a neat way to see the Two of Swords. And then I turned it over to, oh, judgment. Whoa. And that just, yeah. So that just blew my mind. All right, let's go on here. You know, this one is very pippy, but it makes sense. So knowing that she was responsible for creating the story of the minor arcana is also mind-blowing. I mean, look at the yellow on that, and then look at that. This feels more dreamlike, right? I know that when I dream, I can remember color, but it's kind of like that picture I showed you. I'm focused on a point in the dream. Everything else kinds of blends together. So this is more dreamlike. I do know that a lot of, like I said, a lot of times when these publishers would get a hold of it, they would just have the black and white rendition, because a lot of the original artwork was lost. And so, you know, they were trying to stay true, but I think they, you know, some of the coloring got a little bit too bold, and it just depended on, you know, who was doing it. But color was definitely an add-on. I think that was more original, especially knowing what her artwork looks like today. Now, I will tell you that I think in the pictorial keys, some of the weird coloring, I think, stays true. Or at least Arthur Waite was intending for a certain color on purpose. And I'm not disputing that he was an occultist that knew his stuff. Okay, I'm definitely not taking that away from him, but I think that Pamela did too. But I think that she was more intuitive and more psychic, and is speaking to us on that level where he was being maybe more scientific or alchemical, knowing his, again, occult knowledge. So hers was, maybe it is kind of accidental, but that's where I am, like my personal gnosis is where I find my true discernment. I learn more about the world through that than if I'm reading something, because words can be spelled. So I feel like my personal gnosis is not so much based upon receiving words in my mind as much as they are visions, you know. This looks like he is larger than life. So I am definitely loving Daniel's vision here. I mean, the differences are subtle, but it's enough that it makes a big difference for me. I think that I will probably grab for this before I grab for this. I mean, this is linen. I love linen. This is, I think, plastic. Yeah. Very slippery. These are beautiful. So I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me. And the spirit of Pamela Colman-Smith. I think her story reminds us that true visionaries don't always get recognized in their lifetime. But their light continues to ripple through the art, or their symbols, you know, the legacy that they leave behind, the hearts that they've touched. If you enjoyed this walkthrough, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And share it with anyone who loves tarot history or the magic of forgotten women artists. You can also find my readings, my guidebook, and other offerings on Ko-fi. My deck that I have created is on Make Playing Cards. If you would like to purchase off of Mr. Daniel Martin Díaz's website, I will have that in the description as well. When he sent me all this stuff, he did send me this. So this was just to tell me what was in here. But yes, that will all be in the description so that you can get your copy of this. You know, so as always, thank you for helping me keep this mystical flame alive. I think before we sign off, let's see how well these shuffled. Now, these are bigger. You could see they were bigger, and I love the backs. Look at the backs on these. Isn't that amazing? So this is standard size right here. So it's a little bit bigger, and I did notice that they're a little bit more difficult to shuffle because of their size, but that's because I have small hands. So let's give it a bridge shuffle here. I just love linen. Oops. They're a little bit bigger. I still love the shuffle. Oh, there we go. There we go. That was nice. Yes. So, yeah, leave me a comment what you thought about, you know, what I shared with you about my findings. Let me know if you've read The Untold Story of Pamela Colman-Smith. I'm very interested to hear what you learned from that. That is definitely next on my docket. And yeah, you have to let me know. I'm not going to do any pairings because I think this was pretty long as it is. But thank you again, Mr. Diaz. And I have 4 more decks that I need to do walkthroughs of, so be looking for those in the near future. And thank you again for spending this time with me. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, evening, whatever time it is for you. And I will see you in the next one.